We've been talking earlier about the poll that New York Times published, the New York Times Siena poll about Israel. This is something, and I'll just say it, I feel like I need to say this. This is something we have been warning. I specifically have been warning my friends that I grew up with, that I was in politics with, that have always been pro-Israeli. People always joked, Joe, if you ever want a key to the city of Tel Aviv, you can go in any time and they will do it, because nobody has been a fiercer defender of Israel. I spoke at AIPAC meetings. I believe that Israel holds a very special place in the world. And yet, I have been, as a supporter of Israel, deeply concerned at the Netanyahu government over the past decade, but particularly after his military generals and his intel officers were saying, okay, there are no more military objectives here. All we are doing now is causing additional suffering to the people of Gaza. And it's played out on TV. He's continued it. The New York Times did a long story about why he's doing it. And most people in Israel think it's because he knows that when the war stops, when the shooting stops, his career stops. Talk about the impact on Israel's standing. Forget the world. The world's usually anti-Israel. Let's talk about in America, where we've always been a bulwark of support for the people of Israel.
Well, I think you're right? I think there's an expectation that, Europeans are going to isolate Israel. We're seeing that. But there was this sense that Israel has this special relationship, which is really what you're saying, right, with the United States. And what we saw in this poll is, at least among the American people, that special relationship appears to be in tatters. These numbers were really striking. A majority of Americans oppose giving additional economic military aid to Israel.
Can I stop you there?
Yes.
A majority of Americans oppose military or economic aid to Israel. I never thought I would see that in my lifetime.
This is a seismic change in how the American public views Israel. And really, we don't see changes like this in American public opinion. Sometimes if there's a war or something, we haven't really seen them with Trump. Our numbers in the poll on people's views on the president, even on some of his sort of more divisive policies, are fairly stagnant. But on the relationship with Israel, it's really a significant change. It's not just the conduct, how the Israeli government has conducted the war. People want the war to end. Majorities want the war to end. Majorities, as we said, want to stop foreign aid. But that has really trickled into a broader shift in how Americans view the country generally. And for the first time since we've asked the question, which was 1998, and really since the question has been asked since the 70s, slightly more Americans say they are more sympathetic to the Palestinian side than the Israeli side. And that, the change is most pronounced, of course, among Democrats, but there's been shifts among Republicans, too, that are notable.
We noted earlier, Richard, to younger voters, 70% say we should stop aid as well. So with this shift, really in the last couple of years, how does it affect policy from the American side? We saw this 20-point plan for Gaza rolled out by the president and prime minister yesterday. Does waning support in America affect policy?
Not yet. I think the real question, Lily, is whether it will over time. Just very quickly, it's really interesting, particularly for younger people. Israel's no longer David. Israel is Goliath. That is their take on Israel. And also the Israeli government and their friends in this country have played a kind of inside game. You were in Congress, as I recall. A big emphasis was on winning votes on the Hill, not so much the larger public conversation. And Israel has increasingly lost that conversation, and Gaza has reinforced it. I don't think this is immediate in terms of today's policy, Willie. But if I were the Israeli government, if I were Israel's friends in the United States, and I consider myself one of them, this is a warning signal. This is a sign that Israel can't assume that it has this enormous automatic reservoir of support in this country. This is and the question is, but I don't think this Israeli government takes this seriously. I think there's a feeling that they can always deliver the United States. At the end of the day, we'll be there. So I think there's a real disconnect between the changing realities here and the perception.
Well, it's never going to change until the day it does, until politicians figure out where the numbers are in their district. I will say also, there may be some people say, oh, there's just the Democrats this, is that the Democrats are anti-Israeli. Every election, 70% of Jews in America vote for Democratic presidential candidates. They just do. It's unchanging, no matter what happens. So in this poll, this is not just, you can't say, oh, this is anti-Semitism or this is the media. There are also, there's been consternation in the Jewish community for quite some time about what Benjamin Netanyahu is doing in Israel.
Yeah, it's not a monolith, and it shouldn't be portrayed as such. There's been a lot of anger here in the United States, in the American Jewish community, as to how far Netanyahu has gone. And we see yesterday, despite all the reporting that President Trump, frustrated with Prime Minister Netanyahu, wants this war to end, yesterday still standing shoulder to shoulder. I mean, certainly the clock is ticking in terms of getting a deal done.
Look at that top line, Jonathan.
I mean, there you are. Do we think Israel is intentionally or unintentionally killing civilians? The answer is now 40%. 40% of those polled say yes, it is, up from 22%.
And only 25% say they're taking enough precautions. 40% of Americans, a plurality, believe Israel, our closest ally in the region, is intentionally killing civilians.
And Lisa, a poll is inherently a snapshot in time, but we have seen the trend lines here. And there's a sense, and Richard, we've talked about this could be years, if not decades, for Israel to repair its image because of what's happening in Gaza.
Yeah, especially given the numbers among younger voters. And I do think it's not having an impact on policy yet. And in part, that's because of who is the president and who controls Congress. However, when you look at these Democratic numbers, if you have 80% of Democrats saying that this war has to end, saying that they should not give foreign aid, it's hard for me to imagine that politicians are not going to be responsive to that. If you had 80% of your party telling you that when you were in Congress to do something, it's really hard to push back against that,
right.
As someone who is in that seat, I assume. So I do think we're going to see this play out in short order, and we're already starting to see it as Democrats have these primaries, in New York City, in the midterms, what's happening here could have a big impact if Zoran Mandami becomes mayor. And then certainly if we get into a 2028 Democratic primary, where I think every Democrat in the country wants to be on that stage, we will definitely see this play out. And I just think their politics and their policy will change in response to how their voters have changed. And those numbers, of course, among younger Democrats are even more pronounced.
So Richard Haas, national political correspondent for the New York Times, Lisa Lehrer, thank you both very much for your insights and reports.